Chapter 6. I froze. I knew that voice. It was cracklier than it had been, sharpened with age, but I had no doubt who it was. Maisie Hatcher. Heart pounding half out of my chest, I stopped with my back to her and straightened. Making sure to be slow, painfully restrained, I raised my arms up and away from my body. I didn't dare turn or speak. Not yet. In the moonlight, I could see the spray of small bullet holes torn into the wood next to the door. I gulped. That could have been me. Where are the rest? She demanded. I want to see every damn one of you hooligans. My mouth and throat went dry as the Sahara, while the rest of me sweated buckets. I was reluctant to speak, afraid of what might set her off, but I knew I had to say something. It was my only chance to calm her down. It's just me, Mrs. Hatcher Verity, I began, voice shaking despite my efforts to sound soothing. I'd like to turn around now. Trespassing delinquents, she mumbled under her breath. Let's see your face. I turned. Mrs. Maisie Hatcher stalked toward me, her legs bent and wide. She held fire in her eyes and a shotgun aimed straight at my chest. A shabby tan bathrobe covered her high blue nightgown. She'd aged 20 years in the 10 since I'd last seen her. Her eyes briefly widened when she saw me, and I took that as a victory. You, she snarled, taking fresh aim. Aren't you a little old for this malarkey? Definitely not the greeting I've been hoping for. I'm sorry, Mrs. Hatcher, I said with the words running together. Without conscious thought, I found myself reverting to the tone I'd used when I spilled tea on her skirt during one of my grandmother's church group get-togethers. I needed something badly, and I didn't want to bother you. Her eyes narrowed. What do I have that you want? Okay, yes, this was bound to be an uncomfortable situation. I racked my brain for a way to tell her that I'd come onto her property in order to find the cash she'd desperately sought all these years. Sure, I'd been rather enthusiastic about dashing out of the house with it, but I really had planned to give it to her. It sounded suspicious even to me. Well, she demanded, adjusting her aim. Maybe she was just shocked, scared like I was. She'd been sleeping very hard, if the hair sticking straight out from her head in clumps was any indication. Last time I'd seen Maisie, her tresses were thin, teeth straight up, and stained an unnatural orangish auburn that could only come from a bottle. Didn't quite work, but I had to give her credit for making an effort. I knew I must look guilty. I felt guilty. And every moment I stood tongue-tied in front of Mrs. Hatcher no doubt made me look even worse. Only there was no plausible explanation for my presence on her property at this hour of the night. So I set my goal lower. Maybe, just maybe, I could get her to stop aiming her shotgun at my chest. It was a start. Mrs. Hatcher, right when I thought the entire sordid, unbelievable, damning story would come spilling out of me, I caught the glint of something out of the corner of my eye and found inspiration. Josephine's locket. It lay in the grass a few feet to my right, directly under the ghost's favorite window. I took a deep breath. I came here once on a dare, I said, the words spilling out of me, as if they were true. When I was a teenager, a young dumb kid. I stressed that last part, ignoring the widow's huff of agreement. I came here with some friends. While I was here, I lost my grandmother's locket. She wasn't impressed. I always got kids sniffing around my haunted property. She frowned. This is private property, ain't for kids. I know, I said, raising my arms even higher, even though they were starting to ache. It was time for the truth, at least the part that didn't involve a ghost named Frankie. I cleared my throat. I'm not sure if you've heard, but I had some money troubles. She snorted. We all have. Indeed. I've had to sell most everything my grandmother gave to me. I swallowed hard. Macy watched me carefully. At least I had her attention now. That locket, I said, motioning with my eyes, lying right over there. It's the last thing I have left of her. I shook my head. I know coming here was dumb and wrong and rude, I added, but I was only trying to get it back. She hesitated, relaxing her stance a fraction. And why were you inside? She asked, tipping her gun toward the door of the house. I slowly began bringing my hands down, relieved when she let me. I left it in the upstairs bedroom. The sharp, chilling breeze whipped up her hair and chilled me to the bone. Goosebumps raced down my sweaty, slick skin. I never went up there, she said, her eyes darting to the side as she thought. Of course, I've only been inside once. She eyed me carefully, and once was enough. She lowered her gun all the way. At least we're having a conversation now, not a standoff. I'm sorry, I said quite honestly. I shouldn't have come so late at night, but my house goes on sale tomorrow and I panicked. Had to find it, huh? She asked, glancing at the upper bedroom window. She patted her hair down, or at least she tried. I knew your grandmother pretty well, back in the day. We went to school together. I hadn't realized, but it made sense. We only had one elementary. I remember you from her ladies' parties. The corners of her mouth turned up and she coughed a little. Now, those were some pleasant afternoons. Your grandmother was a really nice lady. I know, I said simply, thank you. I eased over toward the locket in the grass, and when Macy didn't stop me, I reached down for it. Until that moment, I hadn't stopped to consider whether I could still touch a ghostly object. I hesitated for a split second before my fingers closed around the chilly metal. I'd take good care of it, I vowed, as I slipped it into my pocket. When the widow's brows furrowed, I realized what I'd done. The chain is broken, I explained quickly. I didn't feel right about wearing Josephine's necklace. I'd polish it up and return it to her later. Macy paused. I didn't see it until you had it there in your hand. She rubbed a hand down the side of her face. I must be more tired than I thought. It is late, I agreed. We were both a little stressed. I should have realized she wouldn't be able to see the ghostly object, but then I touched it and brought it into her reality. Amazing. I glanced up to Josephine's window. The ghost stood over us, watching. She caught my eye and gave me a small wave. The widow clucked. I don't know why anyone in their right mind would set foot in that house. It's not all bad, I said, surreptitiously returning Josephine's wave. I shivered as the necklace in my pocket went cold. I slipped my fingers over it and felt it melt away into nothing. Okay, so maybe I wouldn't need to go back. Macy frowned. That place is more haunted than the Queen Mary. If there's a spirit lingering here, she's probably a little lonely. I glanced back at the house. The ghost still stood in the window. I was no expert on the paranormal, but have you tried saying hi? I mean, who wouldn't want to be acknowledged? Josephine had lived a hard life, a tragic one, and her afterlife is no picnic either. It must be the worst feeling in the world to be feared, maligned, alone. Macy had to think about that one. She gestured toward the house with a rolling motion of her wrists. You think I should say hi to jilted Josephine like she's a person or something? I'd call her by her Christian name only for starters, I suggested, but yes. When you walk your property every day, she interjected proudly. Why was I not surprised? Every day, I repeated. Wave and greet her like you would any neighbor. I paused, thinking of the stark isolation of that girl inside. I'll bet things in that house might even calm down a bit if you do. She let out a small huff. Then, to my surprise, Mrs. Hatcher raised her hand, the one that wasn't holding the gun at her side, and gave a small gesture of greeting. Well, hello there, neighbor. She blew out her breath. Not that I want her returning the favor and come by my place with greetings, but I know what it's like to crave a visitor from time to time. I didn't doubt it. Macy didn't have a lot of people she could count on. There weren't many of her generation left. And with that, I was reminded of my true reason for being there. I have to tell you something, I said, retreating to search for the box I'd dropped. It lay on its side in a tangle of grass, half bathed in moonlight. My hemp bag with Frankie's urn lay nearby. I shouldered the bag and then picked up the box. Hope flared in my chest. I'd done it and solved both our money problems. I found this with my locket, I said, carrying it back to her, eager to see what it held. I think it might be what you've been looking for. She gasped when she saw the wooden box with the oak tree emblem. She placed the gun on the ground. Shaking, she took the box from me with both hands. Feels like I've been looking for this for half my life. She glanced up at me, wary, before excitement got the better of her and she unlatched the metal clasp. When she lifted the lid, we saw bundles and bundles of $20 bills, neatly paper clipped together. My heart lifted. She simply stared, her eyes welling with tears. I grinned like mad. You... She stammered, unable to find the words. She shook her head as she struggled to compose herself. Grandma told me stories of how your husband left money for you. He treated her poorly, but that was over now. She shouldn't have to struggle so hard, not at her age, and it seemed as if she had plenty extra. Should be more than you need, right? A single tear fell, bypassing her cheek and falling into the box. Thank you, she said, suddenly quite proper. And for a brief moment I caught a glimpse of the woman she'd been 20 years ago. You deserve it. Here was a woman who lived on her own, walked her property, and stood up for herself. She might not welcome all that many visitors, but she'd more than earned a helping hand, and I was glad to be the person to give it. A cold spot materialized to my right. I didn't see Frankie, but I could certainly hear him. Ask her for the money. He was like the devil on my shoulder. I opened my mouth, closed it. Exactly what does one say to persuade an old woman to part with the junk of her long-awaited inheritance? That's a lot to spend, I said in the worst lead-in ever. Frankie groaned. Be kind, I muttered. Truly, I could speak plainly with the best of them, but not about money, in the middle of the night, with an old woman who stood crying in front of me. She wiped her nose on the sleeve of her robe. You don't know what this means, she said, blinking back grateful tears. Here, Frankie said, you just take it. Like this. I watched the bills ripple under Macy's fingers. Well, not like that, but you get the picture. I took Macy by the shoulder and steered her away from the sticky-finger ghost. Don't you be high-hatting me. Frankie chilled the air at my back. She's holding at least 40 G's in the box. She won't miss half of that. Macy, I began, I don't know if you have plans for that money, but she clutched the box to her chest. I can pay my medical bills now. I was going to lose the house, the farm. This sum might not be enough, but it's a lot. It'll go far, don't you think? My heart grew heavy. Yes. She needed it just as much as I did, and it was hers. I'm glad I could help, I said, fighting back the lump in my throat. Did my hearing go out, or did you just let that dame off the hook? Frankie's voice was incredulous. I waved him off. I'd made her happier, and I think I'd also helped Josephine. It would have to be enough, I decided as I reached into my pocket for my car keys. Maisie was a woman alone. She and I both were. I'll come by and visit you, I added, this time in daylight. I'd bring cookies when I could afford all the ingredients. If I recalled, she favored oatmeal crunch. The urn bumped against my hip. You're just going to give up on our house. My house. It meant more to me than he could ever imagine, but there were some lines I couldn't cross. This isn't right, I said under my breath. What's not right, dear? Macy asked. I didn't realize she could hear so well. I turned back to her. I'm losing Grandma's house. It hurt to even say it, and I wanted to ask you for a loan, but you need the money as much as I do. Maisie said, I love that old house. It used to be the heart of Sugar Land when your grandmother was alive. I nodded. Our family has so much history there, but after what happened with Bo and me, nobody in town will lend me the money to save it, and I don't have a fortune buried in the backyard. She thought for a moment. How much do you need? 20,000, I told her, solemnly. She let out a surprised cluck of sympathy. I can't give you that much. I understood more than she realized. 3,000 would cover lawyer fees to put off the judgment for another month, if you could spare that much of a loan. Of course, I'd still have to figure out another way to earn $20,000. I doubted Frankie had another box of money up his sleeve. Macy Hatcher fingered the lid, not saying a word. Then she nodded hard, a tear spilling down her cheek. Oh, sweet, I can lend you that. I'd be happy to. I couldn't believe it. Thank you, I squealed, hugging her before either one of us could think about it too much. I'll pay you back as soon as I can. She pulled back, flustered. I'm sure you will. I got a job, one that paid a lot better than having an art degree in a small town afforded. I'd work day and night if I had to. I'd even move away to Chicago if it meant I had a chance to make this all right. She opened the box a crack and carefully removed $3,000. Thank you, I whispered as she gave it to me. I was about to breathe the biggest sigh of relief ever when police lights flashed. I about jumped out of my skin when the siren blipped. Headlights turned on us, bright as day, and I realized Macy was as frozen as I was, pressing a wad of cash into my hands. Surely that wasn't illegal. Although there was the issue of me breaking and entering. And I hope she registered that firearm she'd been discharging. Stay where you are, the officer ordered, exiting his car. I knew that voice, and I ignored it long enough to stuff the $3,000 in the pocket of my sundress. Right now, the officer was a tall, looming shadow, surrounded by lights, but as he drew closer, I grew a bit dizzy. Ellis Graham Waddell strode up wearing the badge of the Sugar Land Sheriff's Office. He was the bold one, the black sheep, not to mention my ex-fiancé's brother, and he was the very last person I wanted to see. Chapter 7. He slowed as he approached. Very long, he drawled, as if he expected me to be caught red-handed in the woods after midnight. Damn the man and his assumptions. Ellis Waddell was as handsome as the rest of the men in his family, which was to say drop-dead gorgeous. He stood tall and lean, with broad shoulders, bulk in all the right places, and a dimple in his chin that deepened when he smiled, same place when he frowned. I planted a hand on my hip and waited as he drew the flashlight over me. You get a good look, I asked. I wasn't armed, I wasn't doing anything wrong. Not at the moment, anyhow. His piercing hazel eyes raked over me. We had a report of trespass. Maisie and I were just visiting, I said. That might have been the lamest excuse ever. It's not like I'd ever planned to get caught. His eyes narrowed. I was addressing the property owner. Right, well, then he stopped looking at me. It's good to see you again, Alice, Maisie said, hurrying to latch the box of money and stuff it under her arm. He likes to check up on me. I heard gunshots, he said, before saddling her with a long pause, one that would encourage her to spill her guts, no doubt. She looked like Lucy when that darn skunk stole the potatoes out from under my sink, guilty of sin. I wanted to assure Maisie it was quite legal, how she'd come about her fortune and how she'd loaned me some, but the less we said to Waddell, the better. She patted an errant tuft of hair that was sticking straight out. You're absolutely right, young man. I did fire my gun. She cleared her throat. I thought I saw a bear. Only it was Verity. And she stopped shooting as soon as she knew, I added, as if that meant I belonged here. Ellis stood for a moment, his forehead crinkling as if he couldn't quite believe that was our official story. People must try to sell him on bull all the time, but I had a feeling her explanation went beyond the pale. For a split second, I actually pitied the man. He moved closer to Maisie and placed a comforting arm on her shoulder. Why are you giving this woman money? He asked her. Oh, so now I was this woman. Maisie chewed at her lip, and for a second I thought she was going to spill the whole story. It was a loan, she said quickly. Didn't sound good, even if it was the truth. His radio buzzed and he answered it, Officer Waddell. He might have turned his back, but his manner suggested this was far from over. The radio crackled with static requesting update on shots fired off Sawmill Road. He lifted the speaker to his mouth and acted like it was our fault when he had to say, Subject believes she saw a bear. A black one, Maisie added. He ignored her. No injuries. I crossed my arms over my chest. You'd think in all his years on the force he wouldn't be so put out about wildlife sighting. Maisie's mouth fluttered into a brief smile, but I could tell from the way Ellis's eyes narrowed that he was fast losing patience. I'm going to stay and ask the witnesses a few more questions, he reported to the dispatcher before signing off. Lovely. Maisie looked like she just drunk about 10 cups of coffee. As long as she didn't break, we'd make this work. We'd get rid of Ellis and say goodbyes. And I'd thank her profusely, again. And then I'd get right home and call my real estate agent. The sale would be off at least for tomorrow. Ellis tucked his radio into his belt and strolled straight for me. The man was bound and determined to make this hard. Well, I've been through plenty tonight already, and I think I've proven that I didn't scare easy. Still, that didn't mean I wasn't affected. Ellis towered over me. He was taller than his brother, lean and tan. It was as if he'd been born to be more intimidating, more rugged. He regarded me as if the intensity of his gaze would let him see straight into me. For a brief moment, I wondered what it would be like to have a man look at me like that when he wasn't trying to figure out if I was up to something nefarious. Wanna tell me what really happened? I tilted my chin up. I was out walking. 10 miles from your home, in the dark, he added, not being helpful at all. I needed to clear my mind, I said. As you and your brother must realize, I'm having some difficulties as of late. He clenched his jaw. I know. I was there when you threw the engagement ring at him. You hit me in the forehead. I was aiming for him, I said, keeping my tone lofty. Besides, Officer Waddell had surely been hit by worse than a flying 2-carat princess cut diamond. Bad move for a gold digger, he mused. For the love of Pete. Ever stopped to think I might have had a good reason for leaving your baby brother? He was back on me in a second. Then tell me, he demanded. Ask him, I said, knowing Bo would never tell the truth. He threatened me with my sister's job if I ever said anything, and I knew he wouldn't bluff, and She was a part-time employee at the library, and he was on the board. Ellis sighed, put out, "Can you at least tell me what happened tonight?" "Not quite. It was a misunderstanding," I offered. A muscle in his cheek twitched, and he didn't even notice the unearthly breeze ruffling his dark hair. "She shot at you," he said, with no trace of irony, as if he'd been hit there. "Not really," I said. "She'd hit the house. We were both fine. In fact, we got a lot done tonight. We solved some of our problems, made a few bucks, and everyone was going home happy. If Officer Ellis Waddell would let us." But he was like a duck on a June bug. "Come with me," he said, walking me back to his patrol car. I went along willingly, sort of. "I'm not under arrest, am I?" He gave me a slanted look. There was that dimple again. "Now, why would you think that?" "'Cause that's the only way you get me in the back seat of your car." I said it to shock him, and it worked, although I didn't count on the mild blush creeping up my cheeks. Alice was 2 years older than my ex. Bo was the youngest, and Ellis. Then Harrison as you went up. Harrison was a fancy-pants judge who loved having his name in the papers. Bo was a big-shot lawyer, just like his dad. Alice had stunned them all by opting out of the family business and going into law enforcement. Truth be told, I hadn't seen much of Alice over the years. The middle brother had always been somewhat of a mystery, elusive, taciturn. He hadn't gotten wrapped up in family politics. He loved the law for its own sake, which was quite unfortunate for me at the moment. The police cruiser's flashing lights made me wince. I knew he was only doing his job, and a tough one at that, but I hated being the cause of his late-night investigation. I had to tell him. "This is all rather innocent." "I'll bet." He leaned in close enough for me to catch the scent of him. A pure male earthiness that had nothing to do with perfume counters or aftershave. "What you saw was what you got, it seemed." He cocked his head and leaned in closer. "My brother said you were sly." "Oh, that's not fair." Alice Waddell had known me all my life and ignored me for a good portion of it. I didn't even see him much when I dated Bo. The brothers didn't run in the same social circles. Then Alice had been off in Virginia at some FBI Institute for Police, and now he was back poking his nose in where he wasn't wanted, ready to judge me on a word and a glance and a pile of bills I'd stuffed into my pocket. I didn't mean any harm, I told him truly. I wasn't exactly sure why, but it was important for him to understand that. He simply opened the back door. "Get in the car." Right, of course, I had to wait here while he got the facts from someone he trusted. My heart sank as I eased inside. It didn't matter what Alice thought, and I tried to convince myself. He was one person, a biased one at that. "Now you stay here," he warned, before he closed the door. I watched him walk back, squirming a little in my seat. Macy was a loose cannon, and it seemed like those two had a pretty good relationship. Still, he had nothing on us, as long as we stuck to the truth. And that was good, because I had to get out of here and use the $3,000 that was burning a hole in my pocket. In the meantime, I felt rather small, sitting in the back seat of the police cruiser. I'd never been in one before. The smooth vinyl seat felt hard against my backside, very different from my well-worn velvet cushions in the Cadillac. Steel mesh separated me from the front seat, where the radio buzzed with reports of police activity in progress. Reckless driver on Alvin York Boulevard. Stumbling drunk at the Circle K on 5th and Main. Surely either of those was more urgent than a girl escaping a haunted house with a pile of money. Ellis returned to Mrs. Hatcher. I couldn't read the widow's expression. She stood several yards away, out of the light cast by the headlights of the patrol car. "Yeah, I saw her hands flutter near her neck. She better not be telling him about the locket, not when I couldn't show it to him." It was all facts with him, nothing else. I tried to tell myself that his good opinion of me didn't matter a whit, that his words hadn't hurt. I tucked my long hair back behind my ears and straightened my sundress around me. I'd never had anyone think the worst of me until the incident. Now it happened far more than I liked, but no one had ever been as blunt or as bold as Ellis. That man was in a league of his own. At this point, nothing should have startled me, but still I jumped when Frankie shimmered into view in the seat next to me. He glanced from the dash-mounted GPS system to the lit-up police computer crowding the front seat. The fuzz has gotten fancier over the years. He ran a hand over the seat between us and gave me a pointed look, like he was instructing a 6-year-old to stay out of the street. "You realize now is the time to run." I'm not a criminal. Not really. You, of all people, should know that. I shifted to face him, and speaking of running, why'd you leave me alone in a haunted house with a poltergeist inside? He let out a huff. You gotta be kidding me. I held off the crazy mama so you could get the loot. Fine job you did. The spirit ambushed me. He pursed his lips. Well, maybe if you hadn't spent so much time yakking about your love life, you could have gotten out of there before she got tired of me and before the cops showed up. So this is my fault, I began. A harsh chill whipped through the police cruiser. Zip it, barked a voice from the front. A ghostly figure glowered at us from the front passenger seat. He wore a tan Sugarland Sheriff's Department uniform with black trim and a gold badge. He had to be at least 60, but he was built as solid as a drill sergeant. He wore his gray hair in a crew cut, and his name tag read Hale. He wasn't black and white, and he wasn't as translucent as Frankie, but he was definitely a ghost. I turned to Frankie. How come I could see him in color? The gangster shrugged. You probably haven't been dead that long. My heart lodged in my throat. So this Officer Hale was as real as Frankie or Josephine. I flopped against the seat. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I'm seeing random ghosts now. You ass, Frankie shot back. Hale raised his brows, and I was almost perversely glad to see I'd surprised him. She knows I'm here. Very long, I said, reaching out a hand and then thinking better of it. I gave him a short wave instead. Pleased to meet you. The officer answered my wave with a stern frown. I'd say you're in a lot of trouble, young lady. He gave Frankie a stony look, and you've always been bad news. Frankie sneered. How do you know? It looks like you just got here. Word gets around, Hale shot back. Lordy. Okay, stop. Maybe he could help us out. We're suffering from a misunderstanding, I said. Your police buddy seems to think there's a problem here, and there isn't. Hale braced an arm on the seat between us as he twisted around. Waddell's a damn fine officer. As for you, he assessed me coolly, what I don't get is why you had to leave that poor boy at the altar. Little Bo didn't deserve that. Heavens to Betsy. Now I was taking flack from the dead. Besides, little Bo was 28. I didn't leave him, I said automatically. I mean, yes, I refused to marry him, but... Hale grunted his disapproval. You found out he didn't have as much cash as you thought, and so you called it off. Guess my nephew was lucky to be rid of you. I drew in a sharp breath. Hardly. Now I remembered who this guy was. One of Bo's uncles was a police officer who'd been killed in the line of duty. I barely knew him. Now we've got you red-handed taking money from an old lady, he said. Is that what you think of all that? Does Alice know you're here? The ghost didn't answer. Instead, he pulled a pack of Marlboro cigarettes out of the front pocket of his patrol uniform. He knocked the pack twice against the seat and pulled out a smoke. I crossed my arms over my chest and hunkered down in my seat. Those things can kill you, you know. He didn't even look at me as he felt his pockets for a lighter, soaking a bullet. Frankie pulled out a box of tiger head matches from his front suit pocket and struck one against the seat of the cruiser. He held it out to Hale, and the officer leaned forward for a light. He breathed in a long drag of his cigarette and nodded to Frankie. I keep forgetting I left my lighter under the steps. Now remember, that was me doing you the favor, right? Frankie said. Even in death, he wasn't above getting in good with the fuzz. Smoke curled from Hale's nostrils. I ain't that hard up for a cigarette. The door opened and Ellis stood outside. He didn't acknowledge the ghost cop or Frankie. Of course, why would he? I was the only living one this crazy nightmare. Come on out. He didn't look happy. I hope it meant good news for me. I shimmied out of the car and saw Maisie behind him. I'm very proud of you, she said, giving him an affectionate squeeze on the arm, even as he grimaced at her words. Now I'm going home. It's late and I need my rest. Stay here for a minute, he said, as she began her way down the road. I'd be glad to drive you. She kept going toward her house, her shotgun hitched over her shoulder. I'm fine, she said, waving him off. I walk my property all the time. She was a strong woman, defending what was hers. It was our way here in Sugarland. I'll stop by soon, I called after her. We have to set up a repayment plan for my loan. Ellis turned his anger on me. Don't pretend. Has it ever occurred to you that I might be a nice person? I snapped. No, he shot back. Poor Mrs. Hatcher might have bought your act, but I know better. He clenched his jaw. The lights from the police cruiser playing over his rugged features. I'm telling you now, you need to do the right thing. I dug for my keys, and you need to learn to have a little faith in people. He snorted. My mama taught me to be kind, but in that moment he deserved the truth. I always thought your brother was the delusional one, but you're just as bad. His eyes hardened. If it were up to me, I'd have you in cuffs. Well, I didn't do anything wrong, so I guess you're out of luck. Now, may I please leave? He gave a sharp nod, but he didn't let up. He stuck with me all the way down the path. It's good to hear you're done with your walk. A girl shouldn't be strolling alone after midnight. We neared my Cadillac. Oh, look, he added, he brought your car. Most pedestrians don't think of that. I shot him a withering glare. Are you done being sarcastic now? Hardly. He glanced back at the darkened house. You took advantage of poor Mrs. Hatcher. She's old. She doesn't have any family left. She's the perfect target. He held up a finger between us. I'm going to see she gets her money back. She wouldn't have anything at all if I hadn't gone into a haunted house, I shot back. You want me to believe some bullshit story about how that place is haunted? He made it sound so absurd, so stupid, like I was some kind of liar. Go on in and see what happens, I dared. Let's see how he did with Josephine's crazy mother. He gave a huff. If it's so dangerous, how'd you make it out? I have skills, I said primly. I didn't like the way he treated me this evening. In fact, I didn't like anything about tonight, but I was sick of being called a liar by him and everybody else in this town who found it easier to believe a cheating jerk than to give me the benefit of the doubt. I can talk to ghosts, okay? I said, almost dropping my keys. There, I admitted it. I walked in here and hung out with Josephine. Let him put that in his pipe and smoke it. Jilted Josephine, he scoffed. Don't call her that. I've heard some crazy stories come out of people, but that takes a cake. Has it ever occurred to you, Ellis Waddell, mighty arbitrator of what is right and wrong, that someone could be telling you the truth even if you don't believe it? I held my hands out. No, of course not. You and Hale have all the answers. Alice blanched. What do you know about Hale? Only that he's dead and his ghost is hanging out in your cruiser. I pointed my eyes at him. Old Hale says he can't get his ladder out from under the steps, and I'll bet you think that's my fault, too. I started walking to my car. He stood, his mouth slightly open, working furiously to recover. How'd you know Hale smoked? That's what you want to focus on? Fine, I said as I passed him. I turned around walking backwards. I saw him let up a few minutes ago right there in your squad car. Bet that's a violation, right? You better check the manual on that one. He said you were a damn fine officer, so I'm sure you'll want to make sure everybody's following the rules. Let that wind up his little brain and make smoke come out of his ears. I was done. I opened the door to my car and slid inside, tossing my sack with Frankie's urn on the floor. The gangster could deal with that, too. It's not like it hadn't been dropped before. My skin flushed pink. My whole body felt like I'd been running the 50-yard dash. I wet my eyes before I started up my old tank of a Cadillac. Oh, Lordy. As the adrenaline seeped away, I felt exposed, invaded. I never should have told that man about my newfound ability to communicate with ghosts. But it slipped out before I'd had a chance to think it through. I'd never had a secret this big before. Calm down, it's not like he believed you, I chided myself. Still, ever since that incident with his brother, I was enough of a strange duck around town. No need to be giving people ammunition. Just get yourself home. Plenty of time later to worry about what people will think. As I left the property, I felt a tingling surge whip down my body. I slammed on the brakes, flinging out a hand on instinct to steady the purse that would ordinarily be in the passenger seat. Yow! Frankie shouted, making me jump. I hadn't realized he was next to me, but of course he was. He didn't know how to leave me alone. I braced a hand on my chest and pressed the gas again. Quickly, I glanced into my rearview mirror. Alice had better not be behind me. He'd probably love to give me a ticket for careless driving. You scared me, I said to Frankie. Yeah, he said, looking a little green, 'cause I'm the scary part in all this. I cringed as the car lurched over a particularly deep rut in the road. You shouldn't just pop up on a person. Frankie shook his head. What? You want me to not? I ignored his sarcasm. What was the shock I felt back there? When you left the property, Your connection to the spirit world snapped, he said. He tried to make himself more comfortable on his seat. Good thing, too. I can't keep feeding you that kind of energy forever. You okay? I asked him. He was missing his left knee. It'll come back, he said, stretching out his foot. We just mucked with my energies on. It's affecting my manifestation. He shot me a sideways glance. I'd never done that before. Join the club. I didn't want to see what was on the other side anymore. I just wanted to go home. The roads were dark and until tonight unfamiliar. Still, I managed to find my way back well enough. I was good with things like that. Hey, cheer up, Verity, the gangster said, leaning back against the headrest. He looked tired. The good news is you didn't give away every cent we needed for the house, only most of it. Don't start. It'll buy us some time. I hazarded a glance at him. He sat there, fiddling with his matchbox. Do you have any idea what we can do after this month? He had his eyes closed. With practiced ease, he spun the matchbox with 2 fingers. Not a clue. Glad you thought about it for more than half a second. 1,000 apologies, Princess, he said, shoving the matchbox back into his pocket. You think gangsters buried their money like pirate gold? We laundered it like sensible crooks and put it in banks. He cocked his head. Or we spent it. Fine. I didn't want to talk about it anymore. At least I bought a little time. I didn't have to sell my house tomorrow. Next month was another matter.